We are opening the files on a system that claims to be a shortcut to your brain's operating system. Today, we are doing a deep dive into the Silva Mind Control Method, which was famously described as a revolutionary program by its creator, Jose Silva, and was even a selection of the Psychology Today book club.
Our mission today is to move beyond the hype and really unpack the foundational concepts, the practical techniques, and some truly extraordinary claims. Silva's whole premise is based on this idea of harnessing energy, the brain's own electricity, in fact, and using more of your mind in special ways.
The audacity of the claims here is what makes the sources so captivating. I mean, we're talking about learning to function at a deeper mental level, to enhance creativity, improve memory, and solve problems that felt impossible before. And it comes with all these success stories right out of the gate.
That's right. The sources cite real-world applications almost immediately. A marketing company credited the method with creating 18 new products. 14 Chicago White Sox players reportedly used it to boost their scores, and colleges used it to help students study less but learn more.
It's essentially a total upgrade. Dr. Clancy D. McKenzie, who studied this a lot, said operating at this deeper level just enhances creativity, memory, and, well, dramatically improves problem solving. But to understand the system, we have to start with the man who built it.
Jose Silva. He was a self-educated man, an electronics repairman in Laredo, Texas. And his research really began after World War II. It was fueled by this simple curiosity sparked by some strange psychiatrist questions he encountered in the service. Since he was already thinking about electrical frequencies in his radio business, it wasn't a huge leap for him to start thinking about the electricity of the mind.
So he basically approached the mind like a sophisticated electrical device.
Exactly. He understood the mind generates electricity, which we measure in cycles per second, or CPS, and track with an EEG. There are 4 main electrical patterns we really need to focus on here to get the Silva method.
Okay, so let's define those. Beta is what most of us are in right now, right?
That's the baseline. Beta is 14 CPS and higher. This is your wide-awake, outer consciousness state. You're active, focused, maybe busy, maybe just idly thinking, but alert to the external world.
And below that is alpha, which runs between 7 and 14 CPS.
Right. Alpha is your inner consciousness. It's where you are when you're daydreaming, or in a light meditation, or just on the edge of sleep. Then you dip into theta, 4 to 7 CPS, which is deep relaxation, dreaming. And finally, delta, 4 CPS and below, that's your deepest unconscious sleep.
The crucial takeaway here, then, is that Silva's entire system is based on learning to function consciously below the beta level.
Yes, the core of the method is achieving what he called dynamic meditation, learning to consciously operate at those lower alpha and theta frequencies. It's a state deeper than sleep, but you maintain a very specific kind of awareness. It's not passive relaxation, it's actively using this state to solve problems.
And the source claims he was the first to scientifically prove that humans could function with full awareness at alpha and theta, which is a major counterintuitive leap.
It is. And this is where the central paradox lies. Silva found that when the brain appeared less active electrically, at alpha or theta, it was actually more receptive. It was receiving and storing more information. So the challenge wasn't just slowing the brain down, it was keeping the mind alert and focused while it was in that deep state.
Fascinating. So if we accept this theory that slowing the brain waves makes the mind more powerful, what's the entry point? What are the first practical steps to reach alpha?
Accessibility and simplicity are key, but you have to be consistent. The initial technique, which is mandatory, starts right after you wake up. You go back to bed, set an alarm for 15 minutes later, close your eyes, and look upward behind your eyelids at a very specific 20-degree angle. The source says this position alone is a trigger for alpha.
Just that eye position, and then the deep concentration begins.
Yes. You count backwards slowly from 100 to 1 at about 2-second intervals, focusing only on the numbers. You do this 100 to 1 routine for 10 mornings. Then it's progressive. You reduce the count every 10 mornings, 50 to 1, then 25 to 1, and so on down to 5 to 1.
That level of mandatory focused concentration, counting backward from 100, sounds incredibly challenging first thing in the morning. Do the sources mention if people struggle with that?
They do. They acknowledge that it takes persistence. The difficulty is sort of intentional. It's the rigor of the training that conditions the mind, and the exit routine is just as structured. You count from 1 to 5 while mentally affirming, I will slowly come out, feeling wide awake and better than before.
Okay, so once that core level is achieved, the method relies heavily on visualization. The central tool here is the mental screen.
This is your operating canvas. You visualize a big movie screen, not inside your head, but about 6 feet in front of your mental vision. The purpose is intense training, projecting things like an apple or an orange in full color, detail, 3 dimensions. This forces the brain into vividly focused creative activity.
And this leads directly to what you put on that screen and the words you use to frame it.
Absolutely. The source material makes a crucial point. Words don't just reflect reality, they can actually create it. We see this in the lemon example. If you vividly imagine biting into a sour lemon, your brain takes that literally and your mouth starts watering. The mental image becomes a physical reality.
So we need to perform mental house cleaning to get rid of negative programming.
Exactly. The practice is about getting rid of negative phrases, like it's a pain in the neck, because the brain, especially in that receptive alpha state, might just deliver the pain you ordered.
And this is where that famous positive auto-suggestion comes in.
Right? The system integrates Emile Coué's line, "Every day, in every way, I am getting better, better, and better," repeated just once in meditation. But they add a layer of psychic defense. Negative thoughts, negative suggestions have no influence over me at any level of mind.
Okay, so if we've mastered the angle, the counting, the screen, how do we turn that into real-world efficiency like solving frustrating memory issues?
The technique helps you see that forgetting is usually just not recalling. The information is still squirreled away in your brain. To recall it, you just project the surrounding event onto your mental screen while you're in alpha, and the missing detail is supposed to emerge.
That still sounds like it takes time. Is there an instant trigger for when you're, in a meeting or taking a test?
This is where the 3 fingers technique comes in. It's the emergency trigger for instant alpha. While in your deep alpha state, you mentally instruct your mind. Whenever I join my fingers together like this, thumb, first and second fingers, for a serious purpose, I will instantly reach this level of mind.
So you're basically installing a psychic switch, and the sources give some pretty compelling evidence for it.
Absolutely. There's a story of the Denver teacher who used the 3 fingers technique and the mental screen to teach spelling and multiplication tables way faster than normal.
If we connect this to education, speed learning must be another key application.
It is, and it combines both beta and alpha. Step 1. Record the material you need to learn aloud while you're wide awake in beta. Step 2. Listen to that recording while you're in alpha, concentrating on the voice. This gives you alpha-level retention reinforced with beta-level understanding.
That brings us to controlling deeply ingrained habits, like smoking or weight issues. Willpower is notoriously unreliable there.
And according to Kai's research, willpower often loses to imagination when they clash. The trick in the Silva method is to focus intensely on the benefit of quitting, not on fighting the habit.
And the visualization here is spatially specific, isn't it?
Yes. For weight loss, you visualize the desired outcome, the new, healthy, thin self from the left onto the mental screen. In the Silva system, the left side is the subconscious projection of the future.
So you're projecting your future self onto your screen.
And you have to make it multisensory. You engage all 5 senses and your emotions. Feeling the clothes on your new body, tasting healthy food, hearing compliments, and crucially, the sources say you must never visualize the habit or the forbidden foods, because focusing on them, even for a second, reinforces the wrong goal.
Okay, we've covered memory and habits. Now we're moving into the really extraordinary stuff. Effective sensory projection, or ESP, and psychic healing. The claims get much bigger here.
They absolutely do. This is the advanced training. Students mentally construct a personalized space they call the mental laboratory in alpha. This lab is customized with symbolic tools, a desk, a calendar of all time, filing cabinets for information.
Wait, a fine sieve for filtering blood, a brush for sweeping away arthritis. That sounds less like a lab and more like a psychic cleaning cupboard. Do students ever stock their labs with bizarre things?
The sources say the instruments are symbolic and personalized, so they have to resonate with the operator. So yes, they're instrumental symbols, representing purification or repair. They're not literal tools, they're mental levers.
And this mental laboratory is where they practice psychic caseworking.
Precisely. On the final day of the course, a student, the psychic operator, enters alpha in their lab and tries to diagnose the affliction of a distant, unknown person, given only a name, age, and location.
Could you just quickly define psychoorientologist for us?
Sure. In this context, the psychoorientologist is the facilitator or the trained guide. Their job is to provide the initial data and then collect the psychic operator's findings without confirming anything until the process is over.
That's a remarkable anecdote. Given how controversial psychic work is, how did the sources address verifying these very specific medical claims?
They rely heavily on the anecdotal confirmation they received. The most famous case is John Summers in Elkhart, Indiana. The operator, in his lab consulting his mental counselors, correctly reported a missing right lung and a deep scar behind one ear from an old operation. He even correctly identified a broken ankle that bothered Summers in damp weather, which was all confirmed later. The system really emphasizes trusting the information you receive at that deep level.
The highest form of this, then, is psychic healing. How does that work?
It's the purposeful application of the mental screen. You project an image of the sick person in alpha, but you immediately follow it with a vivid image of them in perfect health. The key is visualizing the healing as already achieved, because at the alpha level, the mind is said to influence the causes of conditions, not just the results.
And here's where we get that incredible anecdote about the nurse anesthetist.
Mrs. Jean Mabry. She was a nurse anesthetist and a mind control lecturer. She applied this during surgeries. While a patient was under deep anesthesia and extremely receptive, she would whisper instructions like, "Tell your body not to bleed." And the result, according to the sources, was surprisingly minimal bleeding. It reportedly astonished the surgeons she worked with.
This psychic work is often framed as accessing what Silva calls higher intelligence.
Yes. And Silva separates higher intelligence from traditional prayer. Prayer is for overall life guidance. Higher intelligence provides non-routine, specific information. He famously credited his $10,000 lottery win to a dream that gave him the number 343 after he connected with this intelligence.
Okay, claims this profound demand supporting data. So what about the research? What attempts were made to validate all this scientifically?
There were two main branches. The first was EEG studies at Trinity University, led by Dr. F.J. Bremner, focusing on voluntary control.
And what did they prove about the electrical nature of thought we talked about?
They showed that Silva-trained subjects could voluntarily start and stop their alpha rhythm on command. This proved they could control their internal focus, a subset of attention that the researchers suggested was unique to humans. It directly challenged the traditional view that you couldn't control these internal processes without biofeedback machines.
The second area was psychiatric outcomes, led by Dr. Clancy D. McKenzie, who sounds like he was pretty skeptical at first.
He was very cautious. He ultimately studied 189 disturbed patients, including schizophrenics, and found the method was extremely safe. Only one patient became appreciably worse.
But the positive changes were dramatic.
They were. 36 of 58 patients tested showed a dramatic improvement in reality perception, measured with a tool called the Experiential World Inventory, or EWI.
What exactly does the EWI measure?
It's a psychological tool that assesses reality distortion, how a patient perceives the world. And what makes the findings so powerful is that, in some categories, the change in patient profiles after the Silva training was as profound as the change seen after 11 electroshock treatments.
That is a staggering comparison. You're saying a non-invasive mental technique achieved the same shift in reality perception as a major physically disruptive therapy.
That's the interpretation the sources draw, yes. It speaks to this incredible sudden restructuring of the patient's inner world. And this extended to things like programming dreams.
Tell us about the patient who programmed a dream to diagnose her illness.
It's a powerful case. A patient had intense chest and stomach pains. Dr. McKenzie advised her to program a dream in alpha to diagnose the issue. She dreamed of a winding road, which she realized mapped to her intestinal tract, and it pinpointed an obstruction. She then used mind control techniques to release the obstruction herself, avoiding surgery.
Beyond extreme clinical cases, what about general self-improvement?
Studies on high school students showed statistically significant boosts in composure, ego strength, and self-assurance. And the significance was huge. The improvements were so unlikely to have occurred by chance. Similar positive changes were noted among welfare recipients, showing a clear shift toward self-reliance and an internal frame of reference. So if we look at the entire scope of the material, the core message is simple. Consistent practice, starting with that 100-to-1 counting, gives you intentional access to deeper mental levels for constructive use in your objective world.
This whole system, from the counting to the psychic diagnoses, it's all built on a trilogy that must be maintained: desire, belief, and expectancy. It's about conditioning your mind to see every problem not as an obstacle, but as a project you have the innate energy to solve.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned, Silva's electronics background led him to believe that everything is energy, including thought. He even referenced EMC-PLA. So if the trained mind can indeed control brainwaves and get results in the objective world, and if you can learn to subjectively manipulate your perception of time and space, seeing the future on the left, the past on the right, It raises a powerful question for you to consider. What other fundamental laws of reality are merely matters of subjective perception that a truly trained mind is capable of manipulating? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.